All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. So, in today's presentation, we are talking all about weight loss and training for hiking, which is an interesting topic which I don't really think gets explored enough. It can be a little bit of a sensitive topic, but I think it's really valuable to talk about, especially at this time of year when a lot of people are getting towards the end of year, starting thinking about their New Year's resolutions. And, one of the most common New Year's resolutions out there is wanting to lose weight. And today I want to explore this topic in the world of hiking in a little bit of detail and just talk through my thoughts on it and how I like to approach this with my hikers. Now, one thing I want to say, I'll apologize in advance if you can hear the cicadas going. They're very loud at the moment, so hopefully they're not too distracting. So with that being said, let's get into it. Now, as I said, talking about weight loss and hiking today. Before we actually get into the presentation, there's a few things I just want to cover before we get into it. If you want to get into the meat of this presentation, you can probably skip ahead about 5 minutes or so, but I want to cover a few important points to begin with. Now, number one, I just want to say from the outset that hiking is for every shape or size. There's absolutely no reason why any person can't get out and do the hikes they want to be doing. And hiking is for absolutely every shape and size. And I personally believe that with the right preparation and training, that pretty much any hiker can accomplish probably 99% of the adventures out there in the world and the hikes out there in the world, regardless of their body weight. As much as a lot of people sort of say, hey, bigger hikers shouldn't be doing these types of things or whatever it may be, I personally believe with the right preparation and training, you can do pretty much 99% of things, regardless of how light or heavy or big or small you may be. Now, today what we're going to be talking about specifically is the idea around losing weight as part of preparing for a hike or improving hiking performance, which many people sort of talk about. And especially, again, at this turn of the year, a lot of people are like, hey, I've got a big hike coming up. You know what? It's in 6 months or 5 months or 4 months or something like that. I feel like I need to lose 10 kilos leading into that trip. And that's going to help me get there or whatever it may be. And this is kind of the context that we're talking about. Now, as we go through the entire presentation, please just keep this in mind. I'm talking specifically to hikers. We are talking about the context of hiking, and that's what we're talking about today. Now, what we're going to be covering today is, number one, why so many hikers out there tend to have this thought about losing weight to help with their hiking. We're going to be covering why weight loss journeys are sometimes not as easy as we may first think. We're going to be sort of talking about our strength to weight ratio and why I personally believe that's way more important for hikers than what your weight on the scale is. I'm going to be talking about a couple of simple ways to assess your strength to weight ratio. I'm going to talk about how a hiker can best improve their hiking, and also where I recommend hikers put their focus on with their nutrition, with their food, in their journeys of preparation. Now, an important point, another preface is, the whole topic of weight loss can be an absolute nightmare. There's just so much information out there which is misleading, confusing, just outright wrong. So many of us have just had the concept of weight loss hammered into our psyche for years and years. And people say you need to lose weight. You're looking large. The second you put on a couple of kilos, people start giving you funny looks or saying funny comments and this and that. And the whole world of weight loss is just a tricky thing. And quite often when we're talking about weight loss, because it can be such a sensitive topic and because we all have our own personal history with this type of stuff, quite often when we talk about something, and specifically we're talking about weight loss, which may be a little bit different than the beliefs that we sort of have. The beliefs that we sort of thought about over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years or whatever it may be. Sometimes when you just hear a different opinion on these types of subjects, we almost just immediately shut down. And, we sort of say, this doesn't agree with what I sort of think, and we just sort of disregard all further information. I just want to say, if you are watching this presentation, please keep an open mind. Try your best. If you feel like you're shutting down, if you feel like, you're resisting what I'm saying, whatever it may be, please keep an open mind throughout. If you get to the end of this workshop and at the end you're like, Rowan is full of it, then, that's totally fair. You can do you and do whatever you want. But try your best to at least wait till the end to reserve judgment, because I think it's really important what I'm going to be covering today. Now, another important point is I will sort of say this, inevitably whenever I talk about this topic, when I talk about weight loss and hikers, every single time I do something on this, I always get messages, emails, comments, or whatever it may be from two types of people who love to get loud and love to kind of get up my grill a little bit. Number one is the people who are like, hey, weight loss is easy, you just need discipline. which I'm sure you've seen people online all the time. And there's always just people who just don't understand the topic I'm trying to present, because maybe they've gone through their own experience and something has been easy for them, or maybe it's not a big deal for them, or whatever it may be, and they just don't understand the concept that weight loss can be hard for a lot of people. And they may have gone through, their own weight loss journey at some type, and they'll often just parrot the things, just saying, you just need discipline, or, restricting what you eat, it's just not difficult, you just need to do it, or whatever it may be. And, yes, this may be true for you and your personal situation, but please just know you are probably in the minority here. We're talking about this subject, people struggle with this subject because there is issues, there is troubles, it is hard for a lot of people. So please, if you are in this situation where you're already thinking, weight loss is easy, why don't you just tell people just to suck it up and deal with it, you're probably in the minority. I mean, in all honesty, if this is you, you can probably stop watching this presentation right now. It's not for you, you probably don't really need it. And I'd sort of say that as well. Now, the other type of people who often are very, very loud whenever I talk about this is people who sort of come from the point of saying, you shouldn't be talking about this. And some people tend to just get annoyed for one reason or another whenever just the topic of weight loss is discussed in one way or another. And I fully understand this topic can be sensitive for a lot of people. I 100% understand that. But if you are already at this point in the video and you're 6 minutes in, and if you are already gearing up for a fight, if you're already getting annoyed, if you're already feeling like, hey, I'm just watching this just to pick it apart and just say why everything is wrong, in all honesty, you probably can stop watching this now because it's not going to be useful for you, in all honesty. My goal with this presentation is to help some hikers out there find a route to feel more capable, confident, and comfortable on their hiking adventures and pull them out of a cycle which I don't like seeing a lot of hikers fall into. That is my goal today. So with that being said, let me tell you a bit of a common story. Essentially, I spend my days talking to hikers about preparing for their adventures. This is literally my full-time job, and since I've been working with hikers, I have talked with thousands and thousands and thousands of hikers who are looking to prepare for adventures, whether it's just get ready for their everyday adventures or leading to a big, challenging thing. Now, one common here that I hear from many hikers out there is when they're leading into a big adventure. If they have something in their calendar, like, this is a bucket list goal, or this is something I really want to achieve this year, whatever it may be, they say, I need to prepare for this, I need to get fit, I need to get strong, and I also need to lose a certain amount of weight. This is often people just put the two and two together, and I hear it all the time. And they'll sort of say, hey, if I've got Kilimanjaro coming up, I need to lose 10 kilos before I go away, and I'll be fine. I hear this all the time, and it just comes naturally for a lot of people to say this. And in theory, I understand why people say this. In theory, it makes sense because if you're walking up a mountain, the less weight you have to carry on the trail, the less weight every step, it's going to be a little bit easier. In theory, that makes total sense. And I fully understand why people put these two things hand in hand. But in reality, and I will say this from experience and professional experience, and again, from talking and working with so many hikers out there, in reality, if we're going in with this approach saying we need to lose weight to prepare for an adventure, this can often be a short road to disappointment and also, at the more extreme end of things, of absolute failure in these preparations. And I want to tell you why. Now, the problem with weight loss is, on the outside, the idea of weight loss is pretty simple. A lot of people love to parrot this online, and from the outside, it's pretty simple. Eat less than what the body needs, and slowly it will drop weight. In theory, that's kind of what we're looking at. And in theory, it's simple. But in all honesty, and for people who don't struggle with this, they may consider this easy, as we sort of said before. But I will sort of say it is, much as it's in theory simple, it is very, very, very more complicated than that. And a lot of people out there, and many people out there, are on these recurring cycle of weight loss journeys. And so many people have been doing this for years, if not decades. I've gone through periods of this myself. I would sort of say 75% of the hikers I work with have gone through periods of this, and it just sucks. Essentially what it is you get to a weight you're not happy with. This is different for everyone. Some people, this may be really heavy. Sometimes this will just be a few extra kilos than you're used to, or whatever it may be. This is just different for everyone, but you'll get to a point where you're not happy. Then you'll basically make a plan. Say, you know what? I want to lose a little bit of weight. What you'll do is you'll restrict your eating, reduce how much you're eating, start exercising. Maybe you'll lose a bit. Happy days. At some point, typically what tends to happen is something comes up which will throw you off track. you'll get sick, you'll have a social occasion, you'll go on holidays, you'll have family visiting, a family member will get sick, or whatever it may be. There's a million and one things that can kind of get in the way, and then all of a sudden we're off track. We start fall out of our exercise, we go back to maybe overindulging with eating, we start having a few more drinks in social occasions or whatever it may be, and all of a sudden we're off track. Now, what happens is we sort of been really, really good for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. Then we have a bigger failure week. Then all of a sudden we kind of feel like a failure. We're like, oh my gosh, all that hard work and I've just had a big binge or whatever it may be. Or you know what, I haven't drunk for so long and all of a sudden I've had a big thing or whatever it may be. And we feel like a failure and we start to beat ourselves up. I guarantee pretty much 95% of the people listening to this video has been in this situation before, because we are our own worst enemies. We are our own worst critics. And I've done this many, many times. We slip up, we beat ourselves up, we start feeling like a failure. This now ultimately ends up in being 2 situations. Number 1, they will start the cycle again and they'll be like, you know what, I'm a failure. Beat yourself up, force yourself to get back into things. You go back on the plan, you restrict your eating, goes well for 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 weeks or something like that. Then something comes up and they fall off the track and then we beat ourselves up and we just go into this cycle. Or on the other flip side of things, people are like, oh, you know what, screw this. This isn't working for me. I'm not enjoying this. So they'll just stop. And in the back of their head, they'll just be like, oh, you suck. You're a failure, whatever it may be. And again, we're always our own worst critics. And we always have these, well, not always, but a lot of us have these thoughts of just, always getting negative on ourselves. It's a cycle I see all the time. And so many people have gone through it. And laying this out here may be a bit confronting for some people. I fully understand this, but I see it all the time and it absolutely sucks. And I don't like seeing people in this cycle. Now, on top of this, that's just a typical weight loss journey. But on top of this, if you are actively trying to improve your hiking at the same time, if you are trying to build up to a big trip, or if you're just trying to improve your capabilities to go out and do the hiking you want to do, and you're trying to pair this with losing weight, then you also have to manage the ideas of low energy. Because if we're restricting the amount of food that we are eating, we're not going to have as much energy and we're expending energy on the training. That's going to be an issue. We're going to have reduced recovery, meaning we don't bounce back quite as well in between sessions. Again, because we're restricting how much we eat. We're going to have lower mood because this can often affect our mood when we're going through weight loss journeys. Some people will get disturbed sleep if you're going to bed hungry or whatever it may be. I'm not saying everyone will get all of these things at one time, but it's really, really common. And then also social situations. This type of stuff can be really, really tricky. If you're going through a weight loss journey and you're going out to dinner and you're like, oh, should I go out to dinner? Or there's nothing on the menu for me. Or if there's like social drinks or whatever it may be. All of this is really, really tough. Now, the severity of these things and the difficulty of these things and the impact of these things will vary between how aggressive your weight loss approach is. Meaning if you're doing really, 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 really hardcore restriction, that stuff is all going to be very, very difficult. If you're just doing a small amount of restriction, that stuff may still be there, won't be quite as much. It will vary. And when we're dealing with these things, whether it's just a little bit or a huge amount, it is hard enough. But if we are also trying to actively improve our physical preparation on the trail, this can absolutely suck. If we're turning up to our training sessions and we've got no energy, if we're waking up in the morning and we're already in a low mood and we're like, I don't want to train today, if we're not sleeping well or whatever it may be, this can just stack on top of each other. And ultimately, in either situation, if a hiker is going through this and they're training and they're struggling through and they're getting through, but then they have that failure on their weight loss plan, they have that big binge, they have that trip up, they get sick or whatever it may be, this can often end up just not only derailing the weight loss plan, but also derailing the training, because it all goes hand in hand and we kind of associate the two. So what happens is we feel like a failure, we give up on the training sessions, we lose the momentum and routine that we've been building, and this can be really, really tricky. So not only in the smallest situation, this can impact our training, significantly reduce what the benefits we're getting, but some people will have this so extended or whatever it may be, it'll actually compromise their ability to actually go out and do the hikes they want. And I, again, personally heard stories of people who have gone through this type of cycle and they booked in a big bucket list trip. They're like, this is what I'm trying to do. I trained up for 2 or 3 or 4 months. Something fell apart. And then I was like, I'm never going to make this trip. And they end up cancelling or whatever it may be. It's really, really sad. And I have heard that before. And it sucks. Now, I've seen this type of situation so many times. And, I want to talk you through, an alternative. Some good news is, while weight loss journeys can be hard, and hopefully I've made that pretty evidently clear, I want to let you on a secret. It's not really a secret, but I want to make something clear. If you concentrate your efforts on improving your strength and your fitness, and if you completely disregard weight loss, if you go into this type of approach and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to get strong, I'm just going to get fit, and you don't even worry about weight loss, you can dramatically improve your ability on the trail in a multitude of different ways. Whether it's getting ready for a big adventure, whether it's just going out and enjoying your local day hikes or whatever it may be, you can dramatically improve your capabilities on the trail. And on top of that, you can dramatically improve many other things in your life: physical and mental health, confidence, capabilities, and a bunch of other things. Even if you completely disregard the weight loss stuff, all too often people put the two things hand in hand, training and weight loss, and they say they are one and the same, but they're not. They're separate things. You can separate them out, and you can see some dramatic results if you do. I personally believe when it comes down to training for hiking, when it comes down to preparing for hiking, when it comes down to getting better on the trail, I personally don't care what people weigh. And when we get on the start up with our hikers that we work with through our online personal training, I don't even ask people what they weigh. I don't really mind. I don't really whatever. And a lot of people will tell me, but it's not something that I really care about so much. What I do care about is what's called strength to weight ratio. Now, what this is basically the ability of your body to move. How strong you are compared to how much weight the body needs to move, and how easily you can move your body through ups and down hills, carrying a pack, rock scrambling, that type of thing. This is so much more relevant, in my personal opinion, in the world of hiking to what's just on the scale. It's so much more relevant because I've seen so many people out there who are bigger. They are bigger hikers, they're larger, however you want to phrase it. But they've been super strong and super fit, and they've had absolutely no issues on the trail. And I'm not just talking about, some hikes, but people are going out and doing multi-month through hikes or climbing some massive mountains or whatever it may be. And while they're technically bigger, they've been super strong, super fit, and felt great. Alternatively, I've sort of seen people who are more petite, quite thin, quite skinny, however you want to phrase it, again, who barely have had any strength or fitness and have had major issues on the trail. It comes down to this strength to weight ratio. It's so much more important. Now, you may be thinking that, okay, Rowan, that kind of makes sense, but how do I know what my strength to ratio is? How do I know how strong I am compared to my weight? And what do I do about it? Well, let me talk you through a few simple ideas around this. For me, when I'm working with my online personal training clients, we will take people through, when we first start working together, a range of assessments when we first start looking at people. And they're basically simple exercise assessments where we can actually get a snapshot on this strength to weight ratio. And I think we take people through about 7 different assessments, which looks at different aspects and different areas of their body, so we can get an idea of where they're at and where they stack up and what we may want to work on. So today I'm going to share with you 2 really, really simple ones you can do to test at home. Now, if you are doing these, what I would just say is just before you do it, have a bit of a warm-up, get blood moving, get a body moving. Don't do this absolutely cold. But here are really 2 simple things. You don't need any equipment. Now, first one is what we call the single leg rise assessment. Now, this particular assessment is looking at what's known as single leg quadriceps strength. So it's essentially strength through the front of the thighs. And essentially, in our context today, we are looking at our strength to weight ratio through that area of the body. Now, this area of the body is super, super relevant for hiking, for going up and down hills, for carrying a pack, for protecting your knees, protecting your hips, and a bunch of other things. So this is really, really important. So essentially what you do here is you just get yourself a chair. Ideally, the chair, we want to be in a chair where when we're sitting on it, our knees are about a 90-degree angle. That's kind of what we're looking for. And essentially all we're doing is on one leg. We start on the chair, and then we just stand up on one leg. And then come down, and then stand up on one leg. And just keep on going and going, and get as many as we can on each leg. Now, I'll sort of say if you get any type of pain on this, please don't do it. Just stop. You're not pushing through pain, but just do as many as you can do pain-free on each leg, aiming for about 90 degrees. This chair here is probably a little bit high. It was just a demonstration I was doing in my apartment, but that's an option. So that's number 1, single leg rise assessment. Now, number 2 is a single leg calf raise assessment. Now, this one's looking at strength and endurance through the calves and the ability of the lower limbs to operate. Super relevant for hikers, for going up and down hills, for doing quicker paces, for carrying a pack, for supporting the ankle, for supporting the feet, supporting the knees, bunch of other things. Now, for this one, you can do this barefoot or in shoes, and literally all you're doing is just pushing up to the top, little pause, coming down, and then pushing up to the top, little pause, and coming down. And again, doing as many as we can. Now, key for this one is just making sure you're just not bouncing up and down, up and down, up and down, because we just don't want to be using momentum through the whole thing. And also just making sure that we are actually pushing up to the top. Sometimes we'll sort of see people and they're like, only do like a half movement and end up scoring, like they end up just doing that and end up scoring loads and loads and loads. Just try to make sure you push as high as you can comfortably. And again, don't push through pain. Now, you can do those at your own house. Takes like 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most. Very, very simple. Now, when we're looking at these assessments, we basically use benchmark scores for this. And these are sort of scores that we use to sort of say, okay, if you score above these scores, happy days, you're sitting pretty good there. Yes, we can probably keep on improving it, but we're looking pretty good. If we score below these scores, that's sort of saying, you know what, the strength to weight ratio for these particular movements in these particular areas, you probably want to work on it a little bit more. And we can sort of develop this. So for the single leg rise assessment, our benchmark score is about 22 repetitions on each leg, which is challenging to hit for a lot of people, but it is important. The single leg calf raise, we use 28 repetitions on each leg. Ultimately, if you test yourself and you are below these scores, which isn't too uncommon, it's not that big a deal. It is basically just a sign saying, look, you will probably get some really, really good benefits from working on these areas. And if you can develop the strength in these areas, your body will be better able to handle itself in numerous situations on the trail and you'll be much more comfortable. If it is super low, some people on the single leg rise, they can't get any, and that's absolutely fine. That can just be a starting point for you. And if you are super low and you can't do anything, you just need to be intentional around how you actually start your training. So you're not just throwing yourself in the deep end doing these really advanced moves or difficult moves, but if you're a bit lower on the score, it's like, well, we want to start off a little bit easier, give yourself, time to ramp up and build things up. Alternatively, if you score these and you're above these scores, it's not to say, hey, it's not worthwhile working on these areas ever again. You will probably still get some benefits from getting stronger, but you get a bit more flexibility in regards to doing things. Now, one important thing I want to make sure on this, sometimes when we do tests and we fall into this trap of it being like pass, fail. If we pass, we're good. If we fail, or whatever it may be. That's not really how we use these assessments. Ultimately, if you score low, this doesn't mean that you can't go out and hike, or it doesn't mean that you're going to be an automatic risk of pain or injury or anything like that. But essentially, we just use these assessments just to identify areas that are going to be most beneficial to work on, to get a snapshot of where you're at, and also use it to track your progress moving forward. And you can retest these every 6 to 8 weeks and just see how your training's ticking over. Very, very simple. So with that being said, if we are looking at, okay, if we've done this scoring, and we're like, oh, you know what, my strength is a little bit lower than kind of what it wants. How can we actually look at improving this strength to weight ratio? It's very, very simple. There's ultimately 2 different divisions we can look at this. Number 1 is dropping weight. Number 2 is improving strength. Either of those options is going to improve this ratio. Now, dropping weight, we can look at 2 different areas in the hiking context, pack or body weight. Now, backpack stuff, this can absolutely be done to an extent. And a lot of people focus in this and hone in on this. And this can be really good because if you can drop half a kilo, even 2 kilos out of your pack, really, really, really useful. But then obviously there's the extreme levels where people are going like, ditching the creature comforts, ditching their food, like reducing sort of bits and pieces. We don't want to get extreme with this. Do it to an extent, but they'll reach a limit where you're like, oh, it's either going to be too much money to get all this crazy lightweight gear, or it's getting a little bit uncomfortable. But it can be done to an extent. And then body weight. As we said, this can help improve this ratio, but it's not quite as easy as it seems. In all honesty, it's not much fun. And I'm not a massive fan of this approach. Now, on the flip side, we can basically, if we're looking to improve this strength to weight ratio, we can improve our strength and improve our endurance. This ultimately requires less willpower because you just go in and you do, say, 30 minutes a session a few times a week, as opposed to trying to keep that willpower 7 days a week, all the waking hours to avoid overindulging in food, requires a lot less willpower, in my opinion. It also has a really, really high ceiling. So as much as the pack weight, there is a limit where you can reduce, and then it gets really difficult. For the strength stuff, we can ultimately improve our strength for years and years and years and years. It's got a huge ceiling, and it doesn't mean you have to be training like a bodybuilder or a power lifter to do this, but with smart programming and consistent programming, you can just keep on improving for a long time to come. And on top of that, improving your strength can just make you feel amazing in so many situations in your day-to-day life and also on the trail. And it also has a ton of other benefits. In the hiking context, building up your strength can be one of the most significant things you can do to improve pain and injury prevention, can improve your stability, your balance, and a bunch of other things. So you can probably guess right now, I like to lean towards this other side of things on this. Now, increasing strength, ultimately when it comes down to it, I've seen numerous, in quotation marks, larger hikers over the years accomplish some amazing, amazing, amazing things without ever dropping a single kilo, purely from just focusing on improving their strength, improving their fitness. you might be asking yourself, okay, now how do I actually improve strength? Well, it's very, very simple. We want to apply intelligent strength training. This doesn't mean training like a bodybuilder. This doesn't mean training like a power builder, but doing some smart, structured training in your week in a consistent routine. We essentially want to be following a structured plan, meaning it's not just doing random exercises, random workouts, but something that's actually built out and designed intentionally. And a well-rounded plan, meaning it's not just working on one or two areas of the body, but we're working on lower body, upper body, core. We're working on the lower limbs. We're balancing out, pushing and pulling movements, so the front and the back of the body. A well-rounded plan, working things holistically. And we want to make sure we're doing something that's progressed over time and made it a little bit harder, a little bit harder, a little bit harder as we get strong, so we can keep on improving our capabilities. Now, I'm not going to go into too much more on how to actually go about this, because, this workshop will end up being a monster. If you are unsure on how to do this, if you're like, okay, Ron, this makes sense. Building up strength to help improve my strength to weight ratio will therefore improve my hiking. Pretty straightforward. But I'm not 100% sure how to go about this. I've never really explored it before. I don't really know how to do a structured plan or whatever it may be. If you're unsure about this, I have something for you. Basically, I've got a free mini course which basically teaches you how to get started with strength training for hiking. Now, inside this course, you'll basically learn a little bit more around the benefits of strength training for hikers. So I've kind of talked about weight loss and strength to weight ratio specifically here, but there's a ton of other benefits as well. I talk about the principles of effective strength training so you can understand why an effective workout may be a little bit different than just something random you pulled off the internet, and also how to create your own strength workouts. And essentially the course will teach you how to create some simple strength workouts to help your hiking. Now, this course is completely free. If you want to get access to it, all you need to do is go to summitstrength.com.au/strength-mini-course. I'll leave a link for that below the video, and you can check that out. So, on top of the strength, that's really, really, really important. Now, if we are going down this route and we're like, hey, as a hiker, I want to get better on the trail, but, I don't really want to stress about weight loss too much. I don't want to worry about that. Yes, we want to improve your strength, but yes, on top of that, there are multiple other areas we want to work on to improve our hiking and look at our training. This is our fitness, our aerobic fitness predominantly, and our ability to just produce energy for long periods of time. We want to work on our endurance, so the ability of our muscles to produce force again and again and again and again for extended climbs, extended descents, stuff like that. We want to work on our stability and balance. We want to work on our mobility, our core, and also hiking specific demands and getting ready for uneven trails, getting ready for carrying a pack, getting ready for up and down hills, and this and that. These are other areas that we want to consider in a training plan. And if we can put together strength plus all of these other things, it can do some amazing things for you. Now, typically when it comes down to how I like to approach this with my hikers and how I usually make up a training plan for hikers, essentially it's very, very simple. Now, number one, we will always do some type of strength training. And in our strength training sessions, we're not doing the bodybuild approach where we do a day of chest, a day of arms, a day of legs, and this and that. But essentially each of our workouts, we like to do a bit of upper body, bit of lower body, bit of core, bit of balance. Put them all together in one workout, goes really well. Now, we also incorporate what we call hiking-specific cardio. So these are cardiovascular sessions, which are really, really honed in towards the demands of hiking. So here we can develop our aerobic fitness, which is really relevant for hikers, but we can also work on specific hiking needs. So, for example, we'll go out and do pack carrying sessions and walking around with a pack around the park or a local or on a treadmill or whatever it may be. We might do stair hill climbing where we're getting exposed to the up and down. And we may do sort of speed walking sessions where we're exposing the body to quicker speeds, or whatever it is. So we can essentially develop our fitness, but also work on those specific needs as well. Then we'll look at the hiking and we'll sort of say, hey, okay, obviously for hiking, we want to get out and hike. So we look at, well, how can we program that out? So step by step by step, we do it a little bit more, make it a bit harder, and improve over time. And we'll also do some mobility work through the week where we'll basically incorporate, help improve some range of motion through key areas. So making sure the joints are moving happily and freely. It also helps the body just relax and recover in between sessions. If you look at those four things, that kind of covers all the bases that I was talking about before. And this is kind of what we cover in our programming for our hikers. And if we can fit all of this in within a week, sometimes the hikes, you may not hike every single week, but get in what you can. But this can make sure we're covering all our bases. And if we can put our attention into these things, we can see some incredible results without even having to drop a gram of weight. Now, you may be asking, okay, Ron, that looks good, but where's nutrition come into this? If you're not thinking about weight loss, what do I do with nutrition? Ultimately, for my hikers, I personally like to push people towards, while going through their training, we don't like to restrict nutrition typically. Some people will still want to do weight loss, and I'll go through that in a second. But for the most part, I usually say, hey, don't worry about restricting your nutrition. Don't worry about sort of holding things back. Don't worry about focusing on the weight loss. Instead, what I like my hikers to do is ensure that we're focusing our nutrition and our eating on supporting our energy, our recovery, and our performance. So we can go into our sessions feeling energized. So we can actually go in and work hard. We can recover in between sessions and feel good and bounce back and feel really, really good. And our performance, when we're actually out on the trail, that we can actually power along. We don't hit those dips in energy. We don't get really fatigued, but we focus our nutrition on supporting those things. Now, this involves, very, very simply, making sure we get enough food. So many people fall into this trap of under eating, whether it's intentionally restricting, trying to lose weight, or just unintentionally because it's just a habit, but making sure people get enough food to support their energy and recovery. That can sometimes be a battle. And also make sure we're eating the right types of food, in the sense that obviously there's lots and lots and lots of different foods out there, and there's lots of different makeups of foods, and some foods will better support your energy, some foods will better support your recovery, and getting the right balance between these things can go a long way. Personally, I like taking this approach because not only can it help support your training and help you feel good, but it can be absolutely liberating for some people to get away from that restriction mindset. And a lot of people I've talked to, they have never gone through a training process and a structured training plan without it being attached to weight loss. So when they can flip their nutrition to say, you know what, I'm going to train hard, I'm going to work hard, but my nutrition, I'm not restricting it, I'm actually using that to fuel my sessions. It can be liberating, it can be eye-opening, and it can be a complete game changer. Some people may be listening to this and be like, oh, do people really think like that? But I promise you, there have been people I've worked with who've gone through exactly this, and it's amazing to see the change. So, with that being said, what if you really, really, really do want to see weight loss? You've heard what I was sort of saying, and you're like, yeah, Rowan, that makes sense, but in all honesty, I personally want to get ready for hiking, but I personally still do want to lose weight for one reason or another. Whether it's been recommended for a doctor, whether it's just personal preference, whether it's whatever it is. What if you really want to still lose weight loss during the process? Well, if you're going down this route, please be smart about it. I personally recommend, please try not to restrict things so much that you get in this point where you're compromised with your training, your energy, and your mood. If you're completely low on energy all the time, if you're dragging your feet through the sessions, if you're just in a terrible mood all the time, you may be going a little bit too hard. On top of that, I don't want people sort of going down that route. They restrict things so much that it is so difficult. You have to have so much discipline that it just increases that risk of failure, because then for Sunday you'll be like, I just can't be bothered. I'm just going to have a burger and binge out. Then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in that cycle of failure again. And then that can compromise your training as well. Now, the way we approach it through Summit Strength is in our signature packages, essentially, I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I'm a personal trainer. I have a good knowledge around nutrition, but I don't particularly love weight loss, as you probably have heard me. But we're well aware that a lot of people are going through this journey. So essentially through our online summit program, as part of the package, we also do have a consult included with a dietitian who specializes in hikers. Now, a dietitian is very different to a nutritionist. Nutritionist, you can do a 6-week course and call yourself a nutritionist. That's fine. I am a nutrition coach, but I did a course, I've been to university, but I wouldn't consider myself a specialist. A dietitian is someone who's gone through university for years and years and years and years. They have that deeper understanding of nutrition. Very, very, very different. And essentially, we have a consult included with a dietitian who also specializes in hikers. So if someone needs help with this, we'll say, hey, book in this consult, sit down, come up with a smart plan so we can go about this and do it right in a way that will balance out the weight loss goal and also the training. Now, if you're doing this by yourself, obviously that's how we do it. But if you're doing this by yourself and you are unsure about how to plan your nutrition, all you're aware of is just doing those hardcore restrictions or cutting things out significantly, whatever it may be. If you're unsure about how to find this balance, then reach out to a professional who understands hikers. I cannot, stress how valuable that can be. Now, 2 people I highly recommend, Valley to Peak Nutrition. We work with them a lot in Summit Strength, and they do some really, really good stuff. Or Backcountry Foodie. Both of those dietitians specialize in hikers, really, really valuable. Whether you want to work them with directly or check out their content and ideas, really, really good stuff. And one final point I'll sort of say is if you are on the route of wanting to really lose weight loss and you're trying to improve your hiking, one final point here is please don't use your hikes themselves as a weight loss tool. One trap I see people say is like, oh, I'm going to do my training hikes and I'm not going to eat anything, or I'm going to eat barely anything. So I burn a bunch of calories and I'm not replenishing them, or whatever it may be. Please don't fall into this trap. In all honesty, if you're restricting your foods, do it where you need to do, but don't do it on the trail. In all honesty, restricting your foods on the trail, this will, number one, reduce the amount of fun. You will get more tired. You will have less energy. And hiking should be a positive thing. It shouldn't turn into a chore. It shouldn't turn into something you're feeling nasty about or whatever it may be. Number two, it can put you at a high risk of fatigue, which is obviously not much fun. Dragging your feet will reduce your actual ability to perform on the trail. And if taken to extremes, it can get you into trouble. Whether you have to have your friends or your family members or other hikers like carry you out off the trail, and I've heard these stories before, whether you're solo hiking in the middle of nowhere, you have to get like evacuated, whatever it is. I have heard stories of this. I'm not saying everyone takes it to extremes, but it's not a good idea. Because you never know what's going to happen with hiking. You never know, hey, am I going to roll my ankle? Am I going to get lost or whatever it may be? And if you're intentionally going with the idea of like, I'm not eating, you're running that sort of risk of having no food in your belly and no food in your pack. I don't like it. So eat smart on your hikes, fuel appropriately, and keep the restriction or the reduction to other parts of your week. Now, ultimately, when it comes down to, improving your capabilities, we're getting very close to the end of this video, so thank you for bearing with me. Ultimately, improving your capabilities, your strength, your fitness, and focusing on these things, you can improve your confidence, comfort, and capabilities on the trail. It can help you feel amazing and can require much less chance of failure than dietary restriction. If you just purely focus on getting strong, getting fit, I personally believe it's such a better approach for most people. Now, when it comes down to it, the reason why you can hear me being so passionate about this, and you can hear why I'm sort of like getting so fired up about this, is one of my favorite things of all the things I sort of see, all the different adventures I see from hikers, all the different cool goals they accomplish, whatever it may be, but actually seeing a hiker who has been stuck in that weight loss cycle for years or even decades, is when they realize there is a different way. When they realize just how good they can feel, when they just purely focus on smart training, how strong, how fit, how capable, how amazing they can feel. And when they just realize how liberated they can feel. When they stop having this dietary guilt all the time and they just eat for energy and recovery and health instead of this restriction. There's been so many conversations I've had with hikers who've gone through this, and it's just amazing to see. And ultimately, when they realize that how many cool things they can now do if they set their mind to it. And it's not a case of saying, hey, I'm never going to be able to do this because I can never drop this weight. It's like, no, the weight, maybe it's a separate struggle, but I can do these things because I can build up my capabilities. I can get fit, I can get strong, and I can go do these things I've been dreaming about for 20 years or 30 years or whatever it may be. Again, I've heard these stories all the time. Now, coming to the end of this presentation now, I really, really do hope this presentation has opened up the eyes of a few people on this topic. And especially I'm releasing this at the start of December. So many people may be eyeing off this turn of the year, end of the year New Year's resolutions. And I really do hope maybe this has opened a few people's eyes up. Because the amount of people who start off this New Year's resolution, they set weight loss goals and it just doesn't happen. They beat themselves up and they fall in this cycle. Maybe this year can be different. And in all honesty, if this saves one person listening to this from this recurring cycle of failure, in all honesty, I believe this is worth it. Now, without all that being said, hopefully you can take a lot of information away from this and hopefully it can help a few people. I will sort of say, as I always do in these videos, if you're in this situation where you need a little bit extra help with this, if you're a hiker who is looking to achieve big things ahead, whether you've got a massive trip planned for next year, whether you've just got big hiking goals or you just want to feel better on the trail, and you're potentially looking for a different place to focus your time, attention, and efforts rather than getting sucked in on weight loss, I would love to chat with you. Ultimately, if you're not aware of this already, we offer personalized online personal training programs for hikers to help them get fit, strong, and resilient for their adventures. They're all online personal training programs. We work with people all around the world at all different levels of their hiking. Now, our packages will typically include a custom and personalized workout plan to get you ready for anything the trail may throw at you, covering those things we mentioned before, the strength training, the hiking-specific conditioning, the hiking programming, and also the recovery mobility work, making sure that's all fit in a way that's going to fit around you, your life, your capabilities, and slowly but surely build you up. Now, on top of that, we'll also educate you on all the peripheral factors which can make or break an adventure. So diving into nutrition, and again, not nutrition focused on weight loss, but talking you how you can sustain your energy and your recovery and all of that. We talk through recovery, self-care, mental strength, pain prevention, and a bunch of other things. And also give you the coaching, support, accountability to keep you on track. So if you do hit one of those things we mentioned before, if you get sick, if you go on holidays, if you have a big social week, whatever it may be, you've got someone in your corner to chat with, to plan with, to action plan around and keep you moving forward as opposed to falling off. Now, if this sounds like you and it's something you want to learn a little bit more about, what I'd like you to do is go to summitstrength.com.au/online. I'll leave a link for that below. Now, on this page, there's another video which talks through our training in a little bit more detail, what's involved and all of that. And if it was something you want to explore a little bit further, essentially on that page, you can book a free call with our team. We can sit on a call with you, just chat a little bit about your situation, your goals, your needs, your hiking. And if it does sound like something we can help you with, we can talk you through one of our packages, how it may fit into your life, and we can make a decision if it's going to be right for you. So if you want to learn a little bit more, go to summitstrength.com.au/online. We can take it from there. So with that being said, coming up on 40 minutes on this video has ended up being a bit of a long one, but I really, really, really do hope this can help a few people out there. I really do hope it can open a few people's eyes, and I really do hope it can make a bit of a difference for a few hikers out there on their journeys. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you very, very soon.